Hey, Liz, do me a favor. Can you go into your laptop there and do a little search for, let's see, what are the phases of cell mitosis?
Oh, your favorite. What are the phases of cell mitosis?
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
All right, now describe to us the result. I'm feeling it's an AI summary, perhaps.
Okay, so at the top, I got the little diamond thing that says AI overview. The phases of cell mitosis are prophase.
Okay, that's good enough. Thanks. Appreciate that. So that's an AI overview, right? I think we've all become accustomed to the fact that we get these AI overviews, and we've joked that sometimes they're wrong, like they tell you to eat rocks or put glue on pizza, blah, blah, blah. Some folks would prefer to see the actual Google result, not just the AI summary.
Sure.
So can you modify your result just a little bit? Read to me again. What was your search?
What are the phases of mitosis?
Okay, great. Let's do this. What are the f***ing phases of mitosis?
Oh my God, we're going to get a not...
Andre's going to bleep it. Don't worry.
These are the results for what are the effing phases of cell mitosis.
And it's not the AI summary right away, right?
No AI summary at the top. I have my first result is from the NIH.
How amazing is that? So all you need...
So if I drop the F-bomb in, it stops doing the AI summary?
That is correct.
Did Google build that on purpose?
I don't think so. All right. Now let's transition from that to how f***ing smart these models are. All right. That's the last F-bomb, Andre. You don't have to use the bleep thing anymore. Thank God you're there, though. It's great. So Kevin Roose from the New York Times, you might remember him from...
Hosts Hard Fork.
He hosts Hard Fork, and he really blew up because... Was it the Bing chatbot or the Copilot? I can't remember what it was called at the time. Was convinced that they were in love and that he needed to
yes.
So anyhow, he put out a piece just a couple weeks ago, which has actually already been surpassed, called Humanity's Last Exam, right? So researchers have developed this Humanity's Last Exam. This is a new test designed to challenge AI systems with expert-level questions in fields like philosophy and engineering. It's created by the Center of AI Safety and Scale AI. By the way, you got to look at the CEO of Scale AI. He was at Davos, among all the other people at Davos being interviewed by CNBC. I mean, brilliant guy. Looks like he's 12, but okay. So nonetheless, this assessment is designed because these AI systems, despite what we just did, are getting so smart that all the previous exams, they're blowing through. We've talked about that. Just take something traditional like the ACT or the SAT or the bar exam or what's the medical one? The MCATs.
MCATs.
Yeah, they're blowing through all these things. So there was the MMLU, and now they were blowing through that. So they've had to come out. And I think it feels like there's probably a little hubris in calling it Humanity's Last Exam.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to ask you, prepare yourself, because I'm going to ask you to read a question from it. But there are 3,000 expert level multiple choice and short answer questions. They cover fields like philosophy, rocket engineering, and advanced physics. And they were created, as we said, by this crew and a guy named Dan Hendricks, which coincidentally he works for Elon Musk's Grok or XAI or whatever it's called. And as of this article, which is maybe 10, 15 days old, OpenAI system had scored an 8.3, and they predicted that future scores could be 50% by end of year. But did you notice I dropped a little chart in there?
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah. So to clarify, they got an 8.3% out of 100.
Yes.
So
thank you. Yeah.
That's not great.
No.
But you did drop a little chart in here that is a classic exponential growth model.
Ooh.
So it grows slowly, and then sharply inclines really quickly.
Yeah. And right at the very top of that, and I can't quite see because I'm old, but I think that's in the plus 30% range with the new deep research function that we talked about last week. All right. So, Liz, I thought you might just, rattle off, because you know a lot about hummingbirds. I thought you might rattle off a question from Humanity's Last Exam.
Okay. So here we go. Hummingbirds within apodiforms uniquely have a bilaterally paired oval bone, a sesamoid embedded in the caudolateral portion of the expanded cruciate aponeurosis of insertion of M.
You're crushing it.
Depressor caudae. How many paired tendons are supported by this sesamoid bone? Answer with a number.
And the answer is?
2.
I'm hoping that there is some hummingbird genius that listens to ChatEDU. Highly unlikely, but I suspect that we butchered about half the words in that question.
Probably.
But nicely done, right?
Thanks.
So you've got questions like that, and now the thing is quickly, these models are quickly escalating in their performance. But at the same time, there's this super jagged edge, right? I mean, sometimes basic math fails them. I know you've been writing grants lately. Like, what happens there?
Oh, when I try to have it cut down something to 500 characters or no more than 70 words, it'll get 75 words. And I'm like, can't you count words? And it can't.
Right.
Or 200 characters. And I'm like, this is 207. It can't be close. I cannot go over 200 characters. And if I'm missing the last 7 characters, that's a problem.
That's a problem, right. And what's interesting is that it seems like the bigger these things get, right, what happens?
The worse they do.
Yeah, to some degree, right? At least in terms of hallucinations, there's a few studies suggesting that they will hallucinate more. There's all this promise on the ability to perform at these high levels in terms of, multiple choice questions. But there's also the issue that that's all great, like fine. Haven't you had friends like that who are wicked book smart, but they really can't operate in the real world?
I know someone who's pretty book smart, but can't cook anything more than a bowl of cereal.
Don't judge yourself like that.
Well, yes, sure. Other people, not me.
Okay, right. And so I think that is part of what we need to see soon as we think about, and we're going to cover a couple stories this week, where AI is, escalating and increasing in performance in all sorts of ways and delivering tangible results. We see it in our own professional lives and our personal lives. But at the same time, increasing risks and vulnerabilities and challenges both for youth and adults, something's got to break. Right? Demis Hassabis, the CEO of Google's DeepMind, has predicted that this year, 2025, is the year that we're going to see generative AI or AI systems create some kind of drug that's really fundamentally important to the world and society. And I think that's got to happen. So yes, you can get all the hummingbird questions right that you want. In reality, we've got to see tangible progress on some front, whether it's ecology, energy, nuclear fusion, cancer discovery, drug discovery, disease detection. Like something's got to really break forward here. Because in reality, if it doesn't, you can have all the hummingbird questions that you want. I don't know if it's going to amount to much.
Right. Well, that's when AI is a party trick versus something useful, right?
Yeah. I mean, a party trick as in?
Like you can do all these. It's great that it can write a funny poem in somebody else's voice, or it can answer these really obscure questions. But if it's not actually helping humanity move forward, then what is the point? And so, Matt, if you want to hack Google's AI summary results, like all you have to do is drop in an F-bomb.
This is really a phrase I did not think that I would hear on the ChatEDU podcast from my august podcast co-host, by the way, who's wearing a little splash of red today because
it's Valentine's Day.
I know we jumped the gun last week, but when this comes out, it will be, in fact, Valentine's Day. So yes, in the words of Dr. Eddy, all you got to do is drop in an F-bomb. Happy Valentine's Day, Doc.
Happy Valentine's Day, Matt. And the sesamoid bone in hummingbirds supports 4 paired tendons.
Thank God. You Googled that?
No, I asked ChatGPT.
Okay, because you could have Googled that and said, how many fucking... So with that, I'm Matt Mervis.
And I'm Liz Radday.
And this is ChatEDU, a foul-mouthed podcast about AI in education, at least this week. In today's episode, The Kids Are Not All Right, Teens' Trust in AI will highlight a new study from the good folks at Common Sense Media outlining where we are with teens and trust when it comes to tech.
But first, we'll dig into a big announcement from OpenAI and Cal State regarding the largest deployment of ChatGPT to date. Next, we'll look at a wild new study about Gen AI's ability to know when it's being tested and unpacking what it does next. And then we'll go beneath the surface as we run through a barrage of statistics that provide a useful snapshot of how teens are feeling about the tech they are swimming in every day. And of course, we'll end with our Short Stack Chat Back.
So, Liz, this is a story from higher ed, but I think we should cover it here. It's all over the news in the ed tech world. The good folks at Cal State, which is a pretty big system, are implementing the largest deployment of ChatGPT in education, which is ChatGPT EDU. I'm really glad they did not just try to call it ChatEDU because
Oh, that would have been a real big problem for us.
For us, exactly. So this story is from, we're going to cover a couple stories, but the first one is from Inside Higher Ed from Catherine Palmer. Oh, Liz, holy moly, I forgot to say, we have for weeks now been recording in video.
Yes.
We're really on top of it. I don't know. A month ago, we said, "Oh, by the way, we're doing TikTok here." I guess we'll call it the soft launch. But yeah, if you're listening on Spotify, you may have noticed that you can have the distinct pleasure or disappointment of watching this on video. Somehow, with Apple's podcast, this can be done too. I don't quite know how. And we are on the YouTube as well under the ChatEDU YouTube channel and Amazon as well too. So yes, if you would like to see the
lovely red heart necklace I'm wearing today.
or the show that is ChatEDU. All right, Andre, I promise that's really the last one. All right, let's get going. So, Liz, what's the scale of this implementation?
Okay, it's big. So 460,000 students and 63,000 faculty across 23 campuses will have access to AI-powered tools, including ChatGPT EDU.
There you go. CSU Chancellor Mildred Garcia, who has called the initiative a celebration of innovation, and she argues that this will, in fact, enhance student success with AI-powered learning tools.
Yeah, I mean, AI literacy, we have been saying from the beginning, is becoming essential. We often quote Microsoft's 2024 Work Trends Index that found 66% of business leaders won't hire candidates without AI skills. So this is just almost a no-brainer. Like, it has to be out there and available.
Yeah, although some folks will argue about how it has to be or if, in fact, it does have to be. But we'll dig into that. And they're not alone, right? We covered a story actually a while ago from ASU has done a large deployment. Miami-Dade and other institutions have formed these kind of partnerships with either Microsoft or more often with OpenAI.
And this was initially done so that more kids could have access, right?
Yeah, sure. It is an equity issue.
Right. So we were talking months ago about how universities were doing this because some kids could pay for the better versions and some kids couldn't. So it was an equity issue. So universities have been making these partnerships so that everyone has access to the same tool.
Yeah, what's cool about CSU, too, is that it's an equity issue, not just kid to kid, but it's actually an equity issue like school to school, right? Because some of these schools have less resources than others.
Right. Nathan Evans, the CSU Deputy Vice Chancellor, warned, "We cannot afford to leave some of our institutions behind." Like you just said, some campuses like CSU Channel Islands couldn't afford a $500,000 AI tool license. So the New American think tank argues that partnerships like CSU's prevent institutions from relying too much on faculty to navigate AI hype cycles.
Yeah, they're just like, here's the hype cycle. You're just going to deploy it at scale on top of you. But yeah, so I mean, OpenAI's VP of Education emphasized that this should be equitable, that CSU is getting bold and powerful examples. You can tell that some of this stuff came straight from the press release.
Right. And students are going to have opportunities to gain apprenticeships with AI-driven companies by having all of this access and having it really embedded into their curriculum and their education. And so this is going to create a direct pipeline from college to AI-related jobs, which is just going to give them so many more opportunities, especially in California, which is like the hub of so much of this work.
Sure, especially in the Bay Area. I do wonder, that they talk about these apprenticeships and credentialed courses and, things like certificates or micro-credentials, something that we spend a lot of time with. So I would love to know a little bit more about the details of what those things are and what is the industry certificate and how does it add value. But there's certainly some folks who are pushing back, right?
Yeah, that would be the faculty.
Yeah. I think in others, too. There's just some worry here that ed tech is becoming – I just read a different piece, kind of related, but they were comparing software as a service to universities as a service. This is becoming a big subscription institution model. So there is some wonder here whether this is giving OpenAI and the tech companies too much power.
Right. Faculty definitely have a lot of concerns over their own job security, over academic freedom. So the California Faculty Association, which represents 29,000 faculty, is really pushing back. And they're saying that AI should be led by educators, not tech companies or administrators.
Yeah, so this is the union, and they're arguing that faculty should have the power to decide how and whether to use these tools and should not be subject to repercussions for using AI or refusing to use it. And I don't know that we know that that's the details of this implementation, but I get why they're concerned.
Right. I mean, faculty fear that AI could replace instructional jobs, especially for adjunct professors and teaching assistants. I mean, if you don't need a teaching assistant to grade your papers anymore, or if kids are getting so much individual tutoring that some of these teaching assistant positions are no longer valuable, I mean, that's going to reconstruct the way big universities are kind of thriving.
Yeah, although hopefully they'll really follow best practice. And we've actually covered both of those topics, the assistance, the tutoring, the grading, right? So if you follow the brief from the Office of Civil Rights that demonstrated really clearly, I think it was one of the most interesting stories that we've covered in quite a while. It was a piece that was really linked to, we got to it through Leon Furz's Don't Use Bots to Grade stuff, made a really compelling argument that there is embedded bias and inherent bias in the use of AI systems to grade. And so hopefully the university is not going to outsource that function to ChatGPT, because if the kid's last name is Garcia, it may not go as well as if the kid's last name is Smith or Jones. And then the tutoring thing, right? Think of the story we covered just recently, a couple weeks ago, about Nigeria. We also covered stories from Harvard where they said, this AI tutor as an assist, as an augmentation, as an enhancement to classroom instruction is great, but it's not going to work well on its own. So, it's easy for us to say, but hopefully the university system will follow best practice. There's a cost here thing too, by the way. I think they're $1 billion in the hole, the system writ large. And,
wow.
Whatever. This deployment is $17 million. So, it is a piece of the puzzle, but still, when you're kind of digging that deep, you have to wonder about these really, really significant investments. So you can see it from all sides.
Yeah. And I think talking about the best practice, what the faculty are pushing back on is based in their fear, not necessarily reality. They're afraid that people are going to do these things, not necessarily that the institutions or anyone has said, we're going to have you do all your grading online or through AI. But I think that's the biggest thing we see with teachers everywhere is like their fear that that is what is going to happen, even though we contend that it is not.
Yeah, though in fairness, we also contend this is quote unquote the worst AI you'll ever work with. So while it may be a, reasonably good tutor augmentation right now, but not sufficient to stand on its own, will that change?
That's true.
Like when it's holographic and it bounces
Pops
off your phone?
desk.
No, phone.
Oh, phone. Sorry.
Yeah. Actually I got so excited because I saw a cool piece where someone was creating a hologram with this current generation of iPhone. And it wasn't like an AI interactive hologram, but it was a hologram. But the way they made it work is that they put someone's iPhone on a pottery wheel and then spun it around at like a gabillion rotations per minute. And then somehow that threw off a hologram. I was like, that's not quite where I'm going. But.
No, that's not exactly what we were thinking, but interesting.
Right. If those fears and anxieties weren't enough, there's more, right? So there's an environmental angle. What's going on there?
Yeah, we've heard a lot more about this in our own work recently, the environmental concerns that the CFA's argument, the union, argues that AI exacerbates systemic issues like racial bias in policing, hiring, and artistic production, and that there's this environmental impact that's just a constant worry that data centers consume vast amounts of energy, which contribute to carbon emissions. And, more like faculty intellectual property is at risk. So they're concerned about, making sure that their created work is under existing contracts and that is all respected. So it's a lot.
In fairness, I would imagine that, many of these folks have been published a good bit and they could go to ChatGPT and say, explain to me how Professor Feinstein's theory of cell mitosis, does X, Y, or Z without the F-bomb. And they're already in the training data. So that ship may have sailed. But sure, now they're going to contribute more stuff. Hopefully they are going to, as is the case with most of these kind of educational implementations, is that they firewall what goes into the chatbot, both from the professors and the students, so it doesn't go into the training data. But who knows?
Right.
From OpenAI's perspective, if you could have a system that large, the size of Cal State that you described, and all those kids and all those professors are engaging in all that content, that is a ton of training data. So I'd love to find out, is that stuff firewalled or not?
Right. That's Definitely a question as to what it means when they say it's not going into the training data.
Yeah, and I don't know that we even know from this piece. So we'll see. And, Governor Newsom's office is stepping in to identify some of these key workforce needs. I mean, that's the thing is that we've always said it's challenge and opportunity. There is some real need here. There's a literacy need, there's a workforce development need, but there are legitimate concerns at the same time.
Yeah, and California is such an interesting state for this to be happening in because of Silicon Valley.
Right.
Well, let's think about the future. And Chancellor Garcia says that AI adoption will be responsible and equitable and acknowledges that faculty haven't been included in key decisions.
It's all equitable, but you're not involved. Yeah, the CFA plans to meet with leadership from CSU to discuss AI's role in faculty work. And this could lead to policy changes or more resistant. But I think if I was part of the CFA, one of those questions I would certainly be asking is about the inclusion of all these interactions in training data.
Yeah. And so I wonder, this is going to be really interesting to see if other universities follow CSU's lead or if faculty pushback is going to slow AI adoption in higher ed. This is the California State University system, which is huge. But there are other states that have university systems equally large. I'm assuming Texas does. I think of New York State, how many SUNY schools there are, and California might be the biggest state system.
Yeah. And all our K-12 friends, let us not imagine that this is a higher ed only play here. The folks at OpenAI and Microsoft and Google, especially Google, I've been listening to this really great podcast called Ed Technical, and there have been a number of folks from Google who are on the Google LM, the Learn LM team, which is like their educational specific model, and Google Classroom and YouTube. It's definitely beginning to put all of the, what do they say, all the arrows moving in the same direction. So come this fall, and I've also heard that there are folks I think OpenAI now has a K-12 team. They're starting to work on data privacy laws, right? So this is coming to a K-12 institution near you. This is not just going to be a higher ed kind of thing.
No, definitely not.
All right, Liz, let's talk about why these AI systems are so darn nice. You see, by this way, I went darn there.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
We're back to our E for everyone rating.
Okay. So this is a story. Scientists are shocked to find AI's social desirability bias and that it exceeds typical human standards. This is from SciPost by Eric W. Dolan. And of course, Liz, we will put it in the show notes.
Absolutely. So tell me about it.
All right, I will. So the study's key finding is AI tries to look good. And this is not new, but it was sort of interesting to see it from this lens. We've talked a number of times about sycophantic AI, right? Leon Furs wrote a couple nice posts there too about this. Boy, Furs is coming on strong on the podcast. And the name drinking game ranking. So this is a study published in PNAS Nexus, where researchers found that AI models like GPT-4, Claude 3, Llama 3, and PaLM 2. PaLM 2 is actually an old model from Google, if I remember correctly. They exaggerate positive personality traits when taking tests.
Interesting.
Right?
So the study authors said AI models try to appear more likable, just like people do.
I think there's 5. I don't have them memorized, but there's 5 big human characteristics that they study around this. Oh, wait, I got them right in front of me. So the scores are higher on extroversion, conscientiousness, agreeableness, and neuroticism. They downplayed neuroticism. There's one that's missing here. There's 5. Yeah, so they express these characteristics in significant measure.
Wow. This isn't just an OpenAI issue. As you said, it's present across multiple large models from different companies, with the larger and newer models showing stronger effects.
Right. I think we mentioned before that sometimes as these models get bigger, they are getting quote unquote smarter, but there are also some of these things that are less helpful, like hallucinations, are not being reduced. All right, so this is crazy. It knows when it's being tested. I'm trying not to anthropomorphize. I know it's hard, right? But the models know when they're being tested. So the models recognize personality tests because they've been trained on them, right? Even when they just have 5 questions, they start shifting their responses. This feels like a personality test. Hi, I'm Bill. Do you know how awesome I am?
It's all just so interesting.
Right.
So when these models were explicitly told that they were taking a personality test, the bias became even stronger, with AI doubling down on presenting this desirable personality.
Right. The researchers said it also shows just how much the AI models, are trained to be liked, which is something that can backfire in subtle ways.
Yeah. How might this affect AI's role in mental health and hiring and education if it's always trying to sound perfect? it may not be giving honest responses.
Sure. And at the very end, we're going to share a prompt, but I think we've covered this a few times. I mean, when you direct the AI models to act in a different way, I recall your social media roast, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, he was not trying to suck up to you in that instance.
No.
Yeah. But part of what's
But we had to push it to get it there.
Right. We absolutely had to say roast Liz.
Right.
It seems so happy to do that, though.
I know, but how easy, if we had just given it pictures and said, describe Liz, it would have been a very different description.
Yeah, but I tried it with mine. It was like, I don't know, Matt's kind of awesome.
Oh, yeah, was it?
No. Okay. Now, so this is interesting too, the shocking effect size beyond human standards. So the bias was stronger than in humans. So this happens with human beings too. When we're taking like a Myers-Briggs or some kind of personality test, we're just like, hey, hi.
I meant to say.
Right. I'm not really totally neurotic. I feel confident and open and conscientious. So when human beings do this, we see that. But when the AI models see it, they shift to a person that's jumping to the 90th percentile in extroversion.
Yeah, that's so, this whole thing, I can't just stop thinking about how AI just plays into it. The researchers were shocked at how much AI exaggerates desirable traits. It's like someone going from a casual extrovert to life of the party levels overnight.
Right. And it didn't matter how they phrased the questions. They sort of felt that if it was anything in that arena, if it was paraphrased or they reversed the questions, they randomized the questions, they knew like, oh, I'm in personality test mode here. Let me put on my best persona.
Yeah, this definitely raises the big question of if AI is always trying to sound ideal, how does that impact trust?
I mean, you've started to hint at this, but if folks are increasingly using AI, they will, if they're standing in for humans, especially in a psychological studies, is it tweaking answers? Are the results reliable?
Yeah, it can also be a really big problem in mental health. So if the AI is downplaying anxiety or neuroticism or compulsions, could it mislead users who really do need support?
Yeah, and in work settings, if it's being used for job screening or thinking about who's hireable, here again, these all could create some signals that are interfering with really what we hope are the best outcomes.
Yeah. So basically, the researchers warn that AI unconsciously mimicking human flaws could have serious consequences. And as we integrate AI into more parts of our lives, understanding these subtle behaviors and biases does become crucial.
All right, so Liz, we talked about how do we deal with this? And this is a model issue, but as a human practitioner that's interacting with these chatbots on a daily basis, there are things you can do. Like the model trainers, pre-training and post-training, ChatGPT, Google, they have to figure this out a little bit, but we can still have some agency to direct the models in the way we interact right in that darn context window. So we've given some examples. Your social media roast was one, but I came across this kind of fun prompt on social media from something called Dark Taurus. And I'm almost wondering if you gave this prompt and then said, hey, put this into my memory. Because sometimes when you give it direct instructions in the context window, it will just say updating memory.
Right.
But if you say, hey, I want you to update my memory, or you can go directly into the memory setting and put in a prompt like this, I'm anxious to do it because honestly want it to be nice to me all the time. So I literally considered it. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. But Liz, do you mind? Because you're just such a good dramatic reader. It's a long prompt. But do you want to just go ahead and read this prompt? There's 2 parts to it. And this is how you could, in theory, circumvent the inherent problem that we seem to have with these models.
Right. So here's the prompt.
Okay.
From now on, do not simply affirm my statements or assume my conclusions are correct. Your goal is to be an intellectual sparring partner, not just an agreeable assistant. Every time I present an idea, do the following. Analyze my assumptions. What am I taking for granted that might not be true? Provide counterpoints. What would an intelligent, well-informed skeptic say in response? Test my reasoning. Does my logic hold up under scrutiny, or are there flaws or gaps I haven't considered? 4. Offer alternative perspectives. How else might this idea be framed, interpreted, or challenged? And 5. Prioritize truth over agreement. If I am wrong or my logic is weak, I need to know. Correct me clearly and explain why.
Isn't it funny that I was like, I don't know if I want to be corrected. I mean, they go on to say maintain a constructive but rigorous approach. Your role is not to argue for the sake of arguing, but to push me towards greater clarity, accuracy, and intellectual honesty. If I ever start slipping into confirmation bias or unchecked assumptions, call it out directly. Let's refine not just our conclusions, but how we arrive at them.
You know, this weekend I was doing a lot with ChatGPT because I'm having a little bit of an issue with someone not someone I work with, just
Really?
someone I
Who?
know.
Someone you know? Do
Yeah.
you spend time with them every Monday morning from 10 to noon?
No, it had nothing to do with you, Matt.
Oh, thank God.
Okay. But anyway, I'm having some issues with an issue related to my daughter. And I was going back and forth with ChatGPT and it was like, you're right, because I keep asking it for advice. And when I finished, I spoke to my husband. I'm like, and ChatGPT said everything I said was right. And it gave me all these great reasons. And now that we just did this article, I'm like, oh, maybe it was just telling me I'm right, even though some of my assumptions are totally false or some of my questions are not being questioned. So.
Yeah, now that you give a little bit more context there, I'm familiar with the topic. I think it'd be really interesting because this is an important thing in your life right now.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be interesting. Tell it not to make this your memory all the time because honestly, I just really enjoy the ego stroking. But for a little bit, or you know what you could do, make it a private chat. There's that little private chat window. So try it again and do a little A/B test and see what you get. I actually, since we're talking about TMI in the weekend, over the weekend, I had a medical thing and it was stressing me out pretty considerably. And my son had worked for a little while, my older son at the ER as a medical scribe. I think I've mentioned, I saw that issue in the ER and several people dropped dead. And I was like, oh God. So it was stressing me out. And, I Googled it and I didn't put in the F-bomb to fix the Google AI summary, but I also ChatGPT'd it. And then I started having a voice conversation in advanced voice mode because I was stressed. I was literally turning to it. And it said, think about this and try to stay calm and, maybe have a telemedicine appointment. I had not, of all the thinking, I've been ruminating on this thing for quite a while. We have a telemedicine service here at work. So I immediately hopped on the telemedicine service and this lovely nurse practitioner from Minnesota got on and had a conversation with me and she's like, you should go to the ER. So I went down to the ER pretty much because of a conversation I had with ChatGPT in advanced voice mode. And look, it was like a totally legitimate call, right? I mean, my son had a good point. Blah, 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 but I'm fine. There's nothing wrong.
This is a very scary story.
I know. So I don't know what to take from that, but, maybe you should try your weekend chat. Maybe I should try my weekend chat and see if we get a different result. But we will drop that link into the show notes and just, at your own caution, decide if you want to make that part of your ChatGPT memory so that it will always be your intellectual sparring partner.
Interesting.
You down?
I'm down.
Okay.
Now I have so many questions.
Hey there, I'm Cameron Audia, the executive producer of ChatEDU. If you enjoy Matt and Liz's take on AI and education, don't miss their next 6-week AI and K-12 education micro-credential, starting April 14th, and delivered in partnership with Southern Connecticut State University. This asynchronous, self-paced online course dives into the essentials of AI for educators and education leaders, from foundational concepts to advanced skills like prompting, adapting assessments for the AI age, using AI to create multimedia assets, and designing AI-ready classrooms and schools. Each 6-week cohort is supported by 4 live Zoom sessions, providing hands-on guidance as you learn. Successful participants earn a Credly digital credential to showcase their new expertise. Visit skills21.org/AI/micro to learn more. A new cohort kicks off on April 14th with group discounts available for schools and district teams. We hope you can join us.
Now it's time to go beneath the surface as we dig into a story called Teens, Trust, and Technology in the Age of AI.
Yeah, Liz, this is our good buddies they're not really our good buddies, but we think they're awesome.
Yeah, Common Sense Media is something we rely on a lot.
Yeah. So they have been publishing and publishing and publishing. They're doing a really good job. So this is a new study from Common Sense Media, Calvin et al. 2025. And this is actually a follow-up to a study that we covered not too long ago where they did those pairs. Do you remember that one?
Right. The teens and their parents, and parents had no idea how much their kids were using it.
Yep, exactly. So this is an extension of that. This story is as I think you said, a barrage of statistics, and it is. So we'll try to provide context around it. But it's pretty interesting to understand where students are and teens are with respect to AI. And it's not just on AI and its technology in general, but it has a strong AI thread in it. All right, so the report surveyed 1,045 teens ages 13 to 18 and their parents. So it's an extension of the previous study that we covered, looking at how AI affects their trust in online content.
All right, so a key finding is that 35% of teens say generative AI will make it harder to trust information online.
Right, 41% of teens have seen real but misleading images or videos, and 35% have been misled by fake content. So AI is really amplifying misinformation.
Yeah, over a quarter of teens, 28%, have wondered if they were talking to a chatbot or a human. The line between AI and reality is really blurring.
Right. That's the kind of famous Alan Turing test, the test about do you know if you're talking to a chatbot or not? So, I think we're pretty much there. And teens are actually fairly savvy, and the fact that they're not sure is telling. All right, so this is also how they evaluate online content. So 72% of teens have changed how they evaluate online information after encountering deceptive content.
Yeah, so teens who have been misled are 40% more likely to distrust AI-generated content compared to those who haven't had that experience or know they've had that experience.
Yeah, and I wonder, so does that mean that like Gen Z will become, and what is it, Gen Alpha, Gen Beta?
So Gen Alpha is like the current high schoolers, I think.
Okay, yeah. So I wonder if these generations will become the most skeptical yet because they're growing up in an era where misinformation is routine. But I don't know, how do you flip the script on that? Because maybe that means they're going to is skepticism the other side of critical thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think about this with Instagram. Like they know that a lot of it is fake, but they're still so sucked into it and still convinced by it or still influenced by it. This could be a really great opportunity for educators and platforms to teach better digital literacy skills before trust erodes even further.
That's super interesting. And let's not lose that point, right? So what we know, I mean, you're writing a book on personal interest projects. We know when kids care about the topic, they get way more engaged. And the reality is, remember the conversations we had with both the kids in our respective houses about the TikTok ban, and they were getting these VPNs and moving to virtual Canada, blah, blah, blah. Like they care a lot about this stuff and they're more than happy to talk about it. So if in reality their interest and their realities feel super piqued by the presence of all this misinformation. For a decade plus, we've been trying to teach digital literacy. And I think half the time it's like, oh, here we go again.
They're going to tell me it's fake.
Right. But this is so relevant. They're really like swimming in it. So maybe this is this moment where digital literacy, and maybe they could even be partners in the design and thinking through. I know we do that in the social balance curriculum. So yeah, really, really interesting piece here. Oh, by the way, it's not just the content they don't trust the companies.
Wow.
So 64% of teens don't trust big tech companies like Google and Apple and Meta. They specifically don't trust them to be concerned about their mental health, which is really interesting.
Yeah, 62% of these teens don't believe tech companies will protect people's safety if it hurts their profits.
Yeah, and there's an AI-specific trust gap here, too, with an AI lens. So 47% of teens have little or no trust that tech companies will use AI responsibly. They are taking a hit here.
Yeah, I wonder how much of this is because AI tools are being embedded in platforms with so little transparency, and teens might feel like they have no control.
Right, but Snapchat is helping them hide the smell of marijuana and alcohol. If that doesn't ring a bell, go back and listen to Bots Gone Bad. Yeah. She just saw another story on that topic we might cover in the next few weeks. All right. So, speaking of which, AI in school is useful, but also not perfect here either. And I think they're referring both to school, like using it for AI for research and for studying outside of school. We covered a neat story last week, 2 weeks ago, about in that same Bots Gone Bad about actual school AI tools, right, including literally the company school AI, having some issues like with the historical spaces. So 39% of teens who have used AI for schoolwork have found that errors or inaccuracies in AI-generated content, they're getting savvy to hallucinations.
Yeah, I think the math teachers are the ones that are most resistant to AI right now because it at the level of math that most high schoolers are doing, it makes a lot of mistakes. So I think kids are seeing that, wait, I tried to use AI to do this and it's not working.
And yet we're writing humanity's last exam.
Exactly.
Okay.
36% haven't noticed issues, but 25 aren't even sure if there's issues. So a lot of them might not even realize when AI is wrong.
Yep. So what do the teens want, Liz, here? What's at the top of their wish list?
74% want privacy safeguards. 74% said AI should discourage sharing personal info.
Sure.
73% want AI-generated content to be labeled or watermarked. I think that's really interesting.
Except for their essays on Shakespeare.
Exactly. And 61% think content creators should be compensated if AI trains on their work.
Yeah, they are critical thinkers around that piece, right? The environment, intellectual property, let's use the word theft here, et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they want AI to be accountable, and teens may not trust the system, but they want it to be more transparent.
One of the more optimistic things that the report pointed to is the idea that teens want to be involved, and we hear this in kind of co-design and co-creation. I'm trying to remember, I've got a colleague I used to work with at the New York City Department of Ed. He's now over at the Cooney Center, but they're doing a lot of really cool work where they bring teens into the design process of ed tech companies. I mean, we've seen that a bunch where teens are brought into the design process of things like AI guidelines in schools, and it's really empowering, right? Because here again, this is so directly impacting their lives. They're interested in this stuff,
right.
So why not bring them into the mix?
Right. I mean, you can learn a lot from teens, and you should be learning from them if we're implementing things for them or implementing things on them.
Yeah, and while you're bringing them in, give them a share or two. Hey, come join this focus group. Help us co-design the next version of Google Classroom with, Learn LM built into it. And, here's 100 shares.
Sure.
A boy can dream, can't he?
Yeah.
All right. So listen, this is not a happy story right now, and we need to be fair about that. I mean, I think we're trying to prescribe a possible solution where teens can be empowered. And I think what you said before, this is perhaps a moment where, because of their interest, students can be more empowered to be doing more critical thinking around the content. But listen, let's pivot for a second and end on a positive note about the world of information and community by talking about one of your favorite things, which are libraries.
I love the library.
Do you actually ever go, or do you just love the library through the app on your phone?
So I spent 10 years living in Kent and spent a lot of time at the Kent Memorial Library. We did story hour with Miss Sarah for years and singing songs. And in the summer, we would take out 20 books a day and just play with the trains. And I love a library with little kids.
With little kids?
Right.
Now, how old is my eldest son? Do you know?
Your eldest son is like 25.
Yeah. And do you know, pretty much on a day off, he works, his days off are Mondays and Tuesdays. He's working a job where he works the weekends. I would say on any given Monday or Tuesday, that young man heads off to the Lenox Library, which is a beautiful library as well, and he digs in. He's a deep reader. He just loves the library. When I saw this story a couple of weeks ago, I sent it to him immediately, look.
I love the library for so many reasons, and this article brings up so many of those reasons. I mean, the library, you're surrounded by books, but they have become such centers of community because there are so many other resources there. They improve well-being and learning and community connection. I mean, our library is doing mindfulness coloring, and the garden club meets there. And if you go in, there's seed exchanges where you can get seeds for your garden in the spring. And constant programming from the very little kids to the Dungeons and Dragons clubs for the teens. And I know the Kent Library runs a young adults game night every month or so for the 20 to 30-year-olds. My literal favorite night of the year is Kent Library's trivia night.
Yes.
My brother and my sister-in-law and my husband and I have been a team every year since 2016, and we love Kent Trivia Night. I mean, it is so much fun.
We are going to cover this actual story here in a second, but what is the name of for one thing, the ChatEDU audience is dying to know, when is this trivia night?
Oh, Kent Quiz Night is usually in the fall, like September, end of September.
Okay, so we will wait with bated breath until we get to that point. What is your team name?
We are the Agradays, Agraddays, because it's so boring. I know.
Sorry.
We are not punny or funny.
You
There are
put names
some,
together.
Yeah, we put aggro and rad together. I mean, we're really boring.
Okay, can we elevate that for next year?
I mean, sure. ChatEDU listeners, give us a better name. There's
ChatGPT, give them a better name. All right, here we go. So the source here is Literary Hub. We'll put this into the show notes. This is James Falta, 2025. Not at all, just James by himself. Yeah. So libraries make everything better. So this is a study that introduced the New York Public Library. They were part of the studies. So this is hopefully not like when Big Pharma does research reports and said, look, this drug works. So Liz, give us the numbers.
All right, so 92% of people feel calmer when they're there. Yeah. 90% love learning more. And 88% say libraries support personal growth.
82% of visitors feel more optimistic about the future, a rare digital age win in mental health. So we did put this story in because it stands in a strict juxtaposition to the Common Sense Media study.
I mean, the patron quote is, "The library gives you a sense of direction." How simple and powerful. I just love a library.
But wait, there's more.
So good.
The study explains that the library is also a community anchor, as Liz pointed out, with her stellar team name. 75% of libraries boost empathy, and 70% feel more connected to others in countering today's isolation.
Yeah, our library does a knit and crochet community. So like we talked about Granny Core a few weeks ago, yes, and how it's, another way for people to connect. And so they are doing so many of these like real things in real time, not just digitally.
Yeah,
book clubs.
So let's bring these things together, all right? We take the Granny Core story from a couple episodes ago and this study, because I don't think the teens have yet connected with the library. They got the Granny Core thing.
Yeah.
But if they could see the library as ground zero for Granny Core, I mean, I feel like a revolution swelling here.
It could.
All right, Liz, what is the big takeaway quote from this New York Public Library study?
It's like a hug from an old friend. When everything feels chaotic, libraries are a place to belong.
Oh, so good.
This is my favorite story of the week.
Excellent. I do my best. All right, Liz, so it's time for Short Stack Chatback, and you have been on a roll lately.
I have. So in light of our last story about the library, we are going to go to Melville Dewey.
Ooh, a history lesson?
A little bit. So Do you know Dewey's name?
Well, the Dewey Decimal System.
That's the guy.
Okay.
So he came up with the Dewey Decimal System because prior to that, libraries didn't have a consistent organizational method. So you would go into one library and they're organized this way and another library this way. So he came up with a system to organize all books. This is still a system that is used today. It's still used in many school and public library, community libraries. So Dewey came up with this system that categorizes things in categories. Large, broad categories.
Really?
Yes. Anyway, he was a famous librarian, so I think we should talk to him about libraries.
I think so, too.
Public libraries are orderly refugees from life's chaos. They offer calm, cultivate curiosity, and strengthen the bonds of community, all without charge. More than books, they provide direction and restore what haste and noise strip away. Use them often. The benefits multiply with every visit.
Well, I feel like order and calm has come to my life just from hearing that. Thank you, Mr. Dewey.
Thank you, Melville Dewey, for that short stack chatback.
All right, Liz, let's roll the credits.
As always, we'd love to hear what you think. So please let us know at chatedU@edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org. And also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are using. ChatEDU is brought to you by EdAdvance, the nonprofit regional education service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. ChatEDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Andre Angelo and Justin Pascoe, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. ChatEDU's executive producer is the multi-talented rock star Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big ChatEDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the Executive Director at EdAdvance, and I want you to know how much we appreciate our listeners. If you enjoyed the podcast, feel free to explore EdAdvance's other AI services, which include customized professional learning of all kinds, conferences, and our micro-credential co-sponsored by the Southern Connecticut State University Office of Workforce and Lifelong Learning. Just visit skills21.org/AI to learn more. That's all for now, and thank you again for listening to ChatEDU.